Sheriff Steve Prator is here. Mr. Steve, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
You know, I said a couple of seconds ago, we try and put a fine point on our questions. We try and split hairs. We try and get to the nitty-gritty. So my first question is, when you refer to the governor's Justice Reinvestment program as, what was this word?
The quote is, it's just stupid.
What do you mean by stupid?
Well, it's stupid in the fact, and that might have been a poor choice of words. It's illogical in the fact that in many cases people are being let out of jail early, and they've gotten break after break after break after break, and they're getting let out of jail earlier than they're supposed to, with the premise that they've had all this rehabilitation, and it's just not the case.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to me that the reason you might think it's stupid is because you think there's a lot of people getting out of jail that shouldn't be out of jail on the street. Is that fair?
That's very fair. It includes offenders that are violent offenders that have a history of violence. It's not as it's purported that it's just for nonviolent offenders. We're led to believe, if you would read or if you would think about some of the things we're told, that the jail is full of people that have one joint of marijuana and that's all they've ever done in their life, and they've got 10 years sentenced. Well, that's not the case. We write tickets for possession of marijuana. That's a misdemeanor. We're talking about people that have done armed robberies, numerous armed robberies, people that have been charged with murder and pled. They dropped a charge down to manslaughter, and they would serve a few years for that and then get out and then commit armed robberies. And it's just, I could go over case after case and point after point of this.
So you think this is making the Arklatex, the state of Louisiana, a more dangerous place?
Well, I would certainly say that would have to be the case. Well, let's put it this way. I'll let you reach your own conclusion. There's more dangerous people being let out of jail that have not changed their behavior through any kind of program they've been given. It would just be a stroke of luck and act of God if they all of a sudden decided to start stop beating up their domestic partners and fighting dogs, and if they would decide to quit shooting people and that sort of thing, and that'd be good if they quit, but I just don't see it.
There's a big debate over, and I know the corrections department and the governor, they're trying to split hairs, but a list was sent out to DAs across the state that had 1,400 names on it of people that were going to be released November 1. I'm stunned that sheriffs didn't get the same list. Where's the communication?
The list we got has 64 people on it, just from Caddo Parish to be released from CCC. The list that shows 192 or whatever that you have is a list of those that we didn't get, but they're the ones that are going to be released not only out of CCC, but it's people that committed crimes in Caddo, that live in Caddo, that because we didn't have jail space here, we had shipped them off to other jurisdictions to hold and to the Department of Corrections. So they are being let out of those particular jurisdictions, and I can imagine they would come back to Caddo. This is their home.
Yeah, this is where mama or their wife or whoever. How are you going to track all these people? You don't have enough deputies to keep an eye on these folks.
No, we couldn't even start to try to do that. Probation and parole, who are overworked to begin with, and where a lot of this information came from, it's their duty and that's their job to do that. But yet there's less time to track them because their probation and parole periods have been reduced substantially through this law. And so not only do we don't rehabilitate them when they're in jail, we let them out and we watch them less time than we did before. Now, this Justice Reinvestment, and I'll be the first to tell you, there's things in our justice system in Louisiana that could be changed. I could tell you a lot of things that would impact jail space and get some prisoners out of jail. But just to wholesale send out a list because of these people meet certain criteria that this law says that's not the way to do. These people are not being vetted properly, and there are some dangerous people being let out of jail.
Mr. Steve, you're dropping this in the governor's lap, so to speak, but this also made its way through a Republican-controlled legislature. Is it the state legislature? Is this on them too, kind of?
Oh yes, sir. It's on them. It's on, and like I say, this is not. I mean, it had to pass in order to take effect. But the way that it passed was, well, I won't get into the way that it passed. That's neither here nor there. But the point of the matter is the way that these are being vetted, the way that times are being calculated, the way that decisions are being made, and the way that there has this justice reinvestment in other states. The money was reinvested or put up front, and people were rehabilitated. We hadn't saved the money to initiate reinvestment, and we hadn't been put up the money to initiate programs to rehabilitate prisoners.
Cart before the horse, kind of.
Right. So we're letting people out that have not been rehabilitated, and we're letting some out that are, quite frankly, like I said before, unless God changes their heart, they just ain't going to be rehabilitated. They've got such a history of abusing people and evil deeds and taking advantage of people. And I mean, until they just, well, I won't get into all that, but
then let's go
putting
back.
the horse before the cart.
Let's go back to the governor for just a couple of seconds, because this whole Justice Reinvestment Act did come from his office. Do you think that the governor is just a decent, nice guy who wants to give folks a second chance, or do you think there might be some political motivation in this whole thing?
No, I like the governor. I think he's a good man. He's got a good heart. Personally like him. I don't like this law. I don't think it was well. I know there was a lot of work put into it, but it's not being applied and not being sold as to what it really is. And it's like the governor's office responded to what I had to say.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Right. They sent to all the news media, and the first thing they say is that the criminal justice reform legislation applies solely to nonviolent offenders who qualify for good time release. And they say that's a fact. That is not a fact. All through, and I supplied the law to everybody at the news conference. I supplied the list that we were supplied from the Department of Corrections to everyone so that they could draw their own conclusions, and that is not correct. It's not for nonviolent. If you've committed armed robberies, burglaries, one person's getting out. Fourth offense, domestic violence, by strangulation. Now,
I found one on the list that had battery on an officer in his past.
Oh, many.
Is that violent? That's kind of violent, huh?
I think it's kind of violent. I think that there's many things on here. When you can be arrested 52 times, okay, 52 times that you've been arrested, and you've given 34 different names when you're arrested. And I'm talking about everything from 13 batteries to second-degree murder to domestic violence 4 times, one by strangulation, trespass, and theft, DWI, throughout your life, and you don't get any I don't know how you rehabilitate somebody, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. If you got to try, and if you hadn't even tried, then this person's getting out 7 years early. That doesn't make sense to me.
So November 1st, you're unlocking the jail, huh?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I'm not through, and I'm not fighting the governor's office and the legislature and all that. I'm just trying to bring some attention to where the citizens of Caddo Parish know what we're up against. And I'm not crying wolf and saying that all of a sudden there's going to be a bloodbath and everybody's going to be shot in Caddo Parish. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we've got a crime problem to begin with, and this is not going to help the crime problem by letting people out that have not been rehabilitated, that are violent offenders. And this law, I would challenge, I would encourage, I would ask anybody to go to the website and read these 10 acts and just see what it does about lessening probation time, lessening parole time, lessening sentencing time, letting people out quicker, all these things, and there's been no savings, so there are no new programs.